Today I'm going to join a chicken for you. It's a bit cold, so I'm going to be warming my hands up as I go. Alright, so first up we've got the breasts on the front, and then you obviously got your legs, and then your thighs underneath, and then your wing. And so we're going to start, I always start by taking the drum and the thigh off first, just because they're a big easy bit. So starting by, you've got your legs like that, and so there's a natural join down there, and we can make an incision, and then we start to open that out, and then you kind of just use your knife to carefully cut the skin to really expose that joint. So as you start to get down closer to the bone, you can just pull the thigh and the drum away, and what we see is that joint pops out, which is your thigh joint, and so then you've got a bit of a natural line that you're going to cut along the top there, which takes this cut off. There is a piece of meat that's sort of in there, so you kind of, the oyster, so you sort of cut around it a little bit to make sure you capture it, otherwise you'd end up leaving it and it'll go to waste. So then I sort of just follow my knife down. There's no sort of bone there that you're going to run into. You can see I've got my joint exposed, and I'm cutting just straight through there. So if I turn that back over, there's the joint again, and I just run my knife through, and then your thigh and your drum are off. So I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side, starting with the incision. It just doesn't have to be a big one, and then I can start to see, right, where are we, and then I can cut this down the skin just to expose it a little bit more, cut along there, and then at this point is when I'm going to again pull the piece back, and then it pops the joint out, and then I can again cut out that oyster, but then just run my knife straight down, and it comes straight off. So now the next thing I'll do is just take one of the breasts off at a time, and then the wing will come off at the same time. The breasts are either side of a breastbone that runs right down the bird, and so you kind of just make your cut, and then you find out what side of the breastbone that you've cut on, and then you go from there. So I do a cut like that, and then I go, right, the breastbone is on that side, so what I'm going to do now is just carefully, using the tip of my knife, just keep cutting down that breastbone, and you just sort of follow, the knife just follows the carcass, and then eventually you get to the bottom of it, and you can see there that I've cut off a bit of the I guess that's cartilage or bone, so I can sort of just cut inside that just really carefully, and then I start to again just work the breast off the carcass like that, and then you get down to the bottom, and I just keep cutting away, and then you start to see here how the wing is still attached to the breast. So I just keep cutting down there really carefully, just teasing it off. And then eventually you make a final cut through. Again, there's no bones, it's kind of more cartilage. There is a bit of a, what's that? That's the joint of the wing, but it kind of is already popped out of the carcass, so no need to cut through anything major there. Then you've got your breasts and your wing attached, and then you can go ahead and do it to the second one. At this point, the carcass has become a little bit more unstable because you've taken off a bit of weight and a bit of stability, but you just go ahead and do the same. Cut down the side of that breastbone, trying to take as much of the meat as you can with it. Like so. And again, I've taken a bit of cartilage, so I'm just going to run my knife carefully along there, and then you'll see the breast is starting to come away again. Again, I want to take as much of that meat as possible, and then I start to just really just hold it and move it out of the way, and I can cut through, and then I should be able to just cut straight down, and then it comes off. Now I'm left with the carcass. The wishbone sits at this end. You can cut that out. There's a bit of meat in between there, you can see, but nothing else on the bird now is really useful, aside from the whole frame itself, which is good for a stock. If I'm going to use it for a stock, which I am, I'm going to cut away all this fat, because the fat would otherwise boil into the stock and just make it really cloudy, and the fat doesn't actually add any flavour to the stock whatsoever. So I take away those bad bits. You can do the same at this end. You can just trim it all away as much as you want, and then I might take away skin from here, but it's also easy to roast the carcass as is, and then it'll roast away some of the fat, and so you don't have to put so much fat into the stock. And if you are going to use it for that purpose, for a stock, you can just run your knife through the middle, just like a cross section of it, and you're cutting through the ribs, and you're just really separating it into two pieces, and then you can kind of give it a bit of a whack on the rib cage there. So what it does is it exposes a cross section of the bone, which is good to start to release all the goodness in there, and then it makes into two small, easy to use pieces. So I'll save that for later. So breaking it down further into pieces that we kind of recognise or might buy. So we've got a thigh and a drum. So it is a joint, so there's like obviously moving parts in there. We kind of know what a drum looks like by itself, so what we can do is we know it's going to be a cut through there somewhere, but you can actually feel the join there, and there's kind of a natural separation between the drum and the thigh, and you can kind of see. So if I find that spot with my finger, which is right there, I should be able to just cut almost straight through it without really too much trouble whatsoever. You're cutting through a join, not a bone. So I got it pretty close, but you can see there I could have been a little bit more on the other side. What I also want to do is make sure that I don't go too generous on the drum. Personally like the thigh a little bit better, but had I cut it more like that, then I'm cutting away meat and giving it to the drum, which is not really what I want to do. So now we've got a thigh and we've got a drum, and we can do it exactly the same for this one. I got my join there. I know it's there, I can feel it, and then I'm just going to run my knife down there like that. And then we've got another drum and we've got another thigh. Now we could go ahead and further trim a thigh. We could take a little bit of this fat off, or skin and fat. We can take away those sort of just bad bits, excess bits, but we could also go further and we could take the thigh bone out if we wanted a boneless thigh fillet. It's the way we do that. I'd probably use a smaller knife than this one here, but you've got your joint that you popped out, and then what I do is I just run my knife carefully along the bone, just following it slightly, and I'm just teasing it, just like that. So I start with that side and then I go to the other, and I try to get as much of that meat as possible. And then at this point you can keep teasing it, you can keep going and going and going, but I kind of just a bit rough and ready, just chuck the knife straight under the bone so it's really close, and then I can just pop it up there, and then I can kind of give it a bit of a pull, and then that's just pulled the bone away, and then I've just got to clean up this end, which is probably the trickiest end. This is where I know there's a bit of cartilage in and around there, it's not just a bone, so I can kind of just tease it off like that, and yeah, I've left a little bit of meat on there, but not too much. And now we've got a boneless thigh, and then if you wanted it into steaks, I might just make a couple of cuts to make it a little bit more even thickness, so that it cooks a little bit more evenly. So that's a thigh. I can keep the bone as well for my stock, so I can just give it a crack, and so it breaks, and then I can add that to the pile. For a breast with a wing on it, again, a little bit tricky, but basically I'm just going to go in there and I'm just going to cut away just carefully. I'm going to do it on the underside because the skin, without the skin, I can see a little bit more about what's going on with the joint. And you can see there I've just left a little bit on, which I'm going to have to clean up after. And I'm just going to carefully cut it off like that. And now I've got my wing. So to clean it off, I'm just going to carefully come in here and just trim it. And so I'm just taking off a little bit of that stuff there. So you can see it's pretty clean. It's pretty stock standard breast meat.
Your phone's gonna die.
Okay. I'll quickly just finish up this last one. Exactly the same process. The last cut is to break down the wing a little bit further. So again, we've got a joint, so we can know that there's a joint in there, and we should be able to just cut through without cutting through bone. And now we've got a little drumlet. And then you can do the same for the rest of the wing. And now you've got 2 chicken nibbles, and this little end bit, the wing, can be used for stock. And that is how you break down a chicken.